You know, while I was working, I started thinking, what brings customers to their certain shops, right? What makes them want to trust the shop that they bring their bike to and how that decision gets made? Let's talk about it. So you're on the road, you get a flat tire, and those are things you can't control, right? Whatever that happens, or whenever that happens, you just have to go to the closest shop or plug it to get you to the next station available to get the tire changed, and hopefully it's a shop of your choosing and somebody that you can trust to get that done. When you go do that, you know, what makes a customer fall in love with that shop or trust that shop during that process? Let's say if you just need to get a service done, what makes you call a certain shop to have that service performed? I would think that every aftermarket shop, dealership, any repair shop, I guess at all, should be able to fix an oil leak. And I think we all could do that pretty easy, but I think it's things that get missed in between. When you take your bike somewhere, are you informed? Are you kept up to date? Are they using the right parts? Do they have the right tools? And do they have the experience? I think that's the main thing is those shops have that right experience for you to trust to have your motorcycle worked on, right? I mean, that's what I would always leans towards if I'm taking my vehicle somewhere to get serviced by somebody that I don't know, or maybe I'm trying to build rapport with to make sure my vehicles are taken care of. Skilled labor isn't cheap, and cheap labor isn't skilled, is what the saying always is. But that stops at a certain point, right? Just because the labor rate for somewhere may be high doesn't necessarily mean you're getting quality of work. If a labor rate's super high and you always hear someone say, well, I know it's high, I'm getting quality work, those are not what you should just go off of. Sometimes your bike may go into a shop and you have no idea who's working on it or who putting their hands on it. And that's a scary feeling, knowing that it costs a lot of money to purchase these motorcycles and keep up with them all the time. And maintenance aren't cheap either, and mistakes aren't cheap. So I think when you go to start trying to find a shop, you need to see who you can trust. Are they a reputable shop? Are the guys working there compensated enough? Do they care about the Harley-Davidson product? Do they ride? Do they want to answer all your questions? Do they want more knowledge? Do they want to become the best of the best? And I think out of all shops, we want to be better than the competition, but it starts from within. I don't think a shop could be that great if the employees aren't taken care of, or if the owner of the shop just doesn't care that you're there as a customer. And I think those are the main concerns of you trying to find a shop that you like. There's a lot of guys I talk to that been using the same shop forever, and they just trust the kind of work that comes out of that shop, and that's good. And I love hearing those stories. Like, hey, so and so's been working on my bike since I entered the Harley world, right? I've owned 5 bikes. There's been one guy, and man, those are great stories to hear. That customers still have those great stories, But being in the industry for as long as I have, over 15, 16 years, you hear horror stories. I took my bike here, this happened. Took my bike over here. I can't believe they left the spacer out. And some shops I hear about just makes me even question what goes on behind some of those doors. But I just like to hear from customers and hear like why they go to certain shops and what do they love about the shop. What do you love about when you come here, right? If you don't come here, then tell me about your other experiences. I love hearing them. There may be someone that works somewhere else that has more experience than I do, or someone else has less experience, and those are good things to feed off of. And the motorcycle industry is small, so word gets around very quick, especially when there's so many shops in a certain mile radius. And we all kind of feed off each other and talk to each other about situations and bikes and certain customers. And how can we prevent certain things from happening? What's going on a production side, this side? Are y'all busy? Are the parts available? Just stuff like that. And I just want to hear from customers and maybe hear from you, like, what do you look for when you take your bike to a shop? What are you striving to obtain? Not just a tire or a service, right? And people buy stuff off of price related items, online. You find stuff a lot cheaper. But a lot of times when you buy stuff online cheaper, that doesn't necessarily mean that the shop's going to take care of it for you or warranty it for you, And I think that makes a big difference. So why do you choose the shop that you go to?